Good afternoon, friends. My name's Justin. Welcome to my channel. I play guitar on songs in Nashville, and if I'm honest with you all, I would say that focusing on modes and learning modes as part of my growth and development as a guitar player and a musician, it all held me back. It really did. This video was inspired by a recent post I saw from Guthrie Trapp, where he said in 20 some odd years of being in Nashville, he's never heard anyone mention modes. And yet it's such a big part of our practice and instructional literature and vocabulary. What's the disconnect here? I think the disconnect is they're really good for you to learn patterns, and that's about it. And music isn't really about that necessarily. Let me give a mild disclaimer. If you're the kind of person who, or the kind of musician who is really into the technical aspects of playing, and your favorite thing is a super cleanly executed, just shredded scale across the fretboard, that's awesome. I am not that guy. This is not that channel. And I just have never really gotten into that beyond the initial, like, wow, that was impressive. What else is on? You know, that's just me. I'm not ragging on those musicians. When somebody is incredibly technically proficient, obviously it's amazing. But with that does not always come the ability to tell a story or to play something creative that is ultra compelling beyond the technical facility, right? And often I think it gets in the way, just personal preference. So, modes. I would define a mode as starting and stopping this scale in a place other than its root, okay? So, easy example, the major scale. Major scale, G major scale. That's it. G to G. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, right? Well, if I start that from the second note and go all the way to the next second note, that's a mode of the major scale. That's called the Dorian mode, from the second, right? From the third. And so on. So I guess the problem was I learned them in these patterns, like these positional patterns, right? So this would be just the G major scale. And then the A Dorian mode would be, and that's a positional pattern. And then B Phrygian, and so on, right? And I mean, you know, if you're trying to get your hands working together and whatever, like, great, and learn the fretboard that way. But what I started doing that was a really big problem is I started thinking, okay, when the chords change, now I'm playing that mode. That's a bad way to try to be creative. It's a good way to try to do math while you're playing guitar, you know? And, you know, maybe I have an aversion to this, just a personal aside. My background is math. I have 2 math degrees. I got a bachelor's degree from Kansas State University, and I met a girl and decided to stick around and see about the girl, and my professors really wanted me to get a master's degree, not because I'm some sort of super math genius, but because they needed teaching assistants, right? Graduate teaching assistants. So I got a master's degree for free, and I taught college algebra and hosted exams and all this stuff, and you know, it was crazy. And that girl, she's my wife now. We've been married for 18 years, so it was worth sticking around and getting a second math degree. But I guess because I have this background in math and I view music as art, I have this disconnect between I don't want to hear math in music. And again, I know that there's a lot of great music, great musicians out there who do stuff that I don't necessarily like for these reasons that I'm describing. And that's fine. I am not ragging on those musicians or that style of music, or you if you're a listener and a fan of that kind of stuff at all. I'm talking about what held me back from where I want to go. And where I wanted to go was I wanted to be able to come up with things that are compelling to other people who are listening to me in the same way that the music that I really like was compelling to me, okay? I want to give other people that feeling. I want to communicate that kind of creativity, right? And for me, as a teenager learning guitar, like, I was all about Led Zeppelin, all about Jimmy Page. He's kind of the polar opposite of like a really clean, technically impressive player, you know? Like, he just had this swagger and slop live that was, sometimes it was like, oh dude, whoa, you know, but what he was communicating was heard loud and clear, right? Like, this is a rock show and we're going for it. But if you listen to the records, like, there are so many incredibly creative and super cool parts. Like, he was one of the quintessential session players of his day, for sure. I mean, acoustic, electric, slide, you name it. Really just great parts and really compelling sounds. His slide solo on What Is and What Should Never Be is still like one of the most compelling, poetic, perfectly emotionally executed, that leads perfectly into the next section of the song. Like, I don't know. And then his mastery of different tunings in some of the like traditional folk and Celtic inspired acoustic stuff that he did, absolutely incredible. So the feeling that I got from hearing these really creative things happening on records, that's where I wanted to get. And, you know, that's kind of my job now. So I feel like I kind of got there in a way. I'm at least being paid to play guitar on people's records and come up with cool stuff. So I guess this video is for people who are trying to come up with cool stuff, but maybe you're stuck in this sea of scale patterns and just boxes and playing muscle memory licks because you learned all these boxes and stuff. Like, you gotta break out of that. If where you're wanting to go sort of aligns with where I wanted to go, which is playing creative stuff, telling a story through your solo or through just your melodic playing or whatever. So my problem, like, I would play a progression, or I'd come across a chord progression in a song like this. So this is a 1, 2 minor, 4, 5 in the key of G, all right? And I don't think about any of that when I'm playing, but, you know, as a teenager and looking through all this instructional literature about modes, I would think, okay, G, well, that's the 1 chord. I'm in the key of G, so that's the Ionian mode. And then A minor, well, that's just like an... I can do a pentatonic over the Dorian mode when I get to the A chord, the A minor chord in this progression, you know. And then the C, well, that's the 4, which is major, and that's a Lydian mode, and then the D is mixolydian. So I've got to jump around and do these things and like process and number crunch the modes as I'm changing chords in the chord progression. That is not right and not helpful for where I wanted to go. For me now, you know, I'm going to play single notes. Just play some single notes that are, I'll play the chord progression and then break into a single note thing. And I want you to notice that you can still hear the chords through what I'm playing, right? You can still tell that that chord progression is happening. So here it goes. you know, you can still hear the chords through it, right? So that to me is where I wish guitar players focused. In your lead playing, it's chords. It's all chords and chord tones, and how the notes that you're playing, even if they're not necessarily the notes in that triad, but how they relate to that triad underneath, right? And for me, like these box patterns that we connect across the fretboard, that's just not it at all. You got to get way past that. And I don't even think it's a good idea to learn those patterns as a mechanism for learning the fretboard, because you muscle memory yourself into these licks and phrases and scale runs that, you know, might be really satisfying in the moment to play and to get down and to play fast and then to play a little faster and a little faster. And then you get on a gig and you're like, oh, I got to bust out these, I got to be impressive. You know, I got to let people know that I've been practicing. It's like, man, all of that, if you want to gig in this town, that will hold you back. Absolutely. You know, I know there's a lot of YouTube videos that maybe in the thumbnail or in the title, they talk about, you know, that unlock something, or this is holding you back, or whatever. And it's done in it's not clickbait. I reserve the term clickbait for advertising something that, you know, in a thumbnail or a title where the video doesn't actually give the payoff or isn't actually about that. Okay. But something that's kind of hooky, I don't think that's necessarily clickbait. And some of these videos are like, once I learn this, this is easy, you know, and I think if you can show people a new way to think about things, then yes, they will get out of a giant rut. So I guess that's what I'm hoping to do with this video. If you are just learning all these finger flapping scale patterns all over the guitar, like, man, that is so peripheral to what music is, okay? And if you want to gig as a guitar player, if you want to work and earn money as a guitar player in the context of being a sideman or a recording musician, you have got to learn how to play in a way that is compelling to the people who are hiring you, and is compelling to the listeners, to the market, right? And that, for me, was always something that I wanted to find. And I feel like focusing on these modes and these scale patterns just did not help at all. So let's do another chord progression. Let's do something weird that doesn't fit into one scale. And, you know, rather than like trying to jump to different scale patterns, I'm just moving between chord tones and trying to use my ear to come up with something that I think is cool. Okay, so let's see, what kind of chord progression could I do here? All right, I don't even know. Okay, nowhere in what I was doing was I ever thinking any sort of Greek-sounding word that's meant to describe a scale or a version of a scale. I'm not thinking of keys. I'm not thinking of key signatures. I'm not thinking of scales or anything in any way. I'm thinking of the G chord and then the B flat chord and then an E flat major 7. That's what I was playing. It's all chords. Everything is chords. All chord tones. So that's what my first little mini course is going to be about. All right, it's going to be about how to think melodically and give yourself a framework that still allows you to be creative without being stuck on these muscle memory patterns. That kind of playing, okay? Because not only is it good for you playing a compelling melodic solo, it's also good for you coming up with parts that make sense with a band. You know, for you to find a melodic hook or a harmonic thing or a rhythmic thing in a spot in the neck, on the neck that works with, maybe there's another rhythm guitar player who's playing down here, and so you need to find something up here to play. Well, what are we going to do, you know? But maybe the vocalist is singing around that register, so how do you weave through everything? That's what I want to talk about, because to me, that's how you make music. That's how you make other people's music sound really good, too, you know? That's how you make money being a sideman, right? Or a session musician, right? So, anyway, if you're a big modal person, I'm really sorry. I'm really not trying to rag on you. It just held me back from where I was trying to go. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned something. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all later.